Alright, so what am I doing here? Tomorrow I'll be doing a test between these Taurus carbon arrows versus these aluminum arrows out of my compound bow. And you may wonder, what am I to do with the compound bow? Why do I use these when I don't usually shoot them? So you see, if I were to use a traditional bow, and supposedly if I get good or bad result out of these arrows, the problem is we're going to have a question. Is it because of me or is it because of the arrows? Because with a traditional bow, 90% is the archer and 10% is the equipment. I can't tell for sure if it's my problem, whether it's good or bad. So by using a compound bow, we know for sure that 90% is the equipment and 10% the archer. So with me not being much of a factor, we can see a more statistical, accurate representation of the performance of these arrows. Okay, that's the reason why I'll be using the compound, even though I normally don't use them. It is just so that I can remove myself from the equation. Okay, so over here we have two really different arrows. The carbon arrows, these are the ones that I normally sell. The Taurus carbon arrows, of course, they are carbon arrows, and they are actually longer at 31.5 inch, whereas these aluminum arrows are the ones that came with the compound. And these aluminum arrows are actually very well spec'd. They are Eastern XX75 game getter arrows, and we all know that aluminum arrows, because of the way it's manufactured, their consistency is really good. For example, the spine consistency, the weight consistency, and the straightness tolerance is way better than we're gonna get from the carbon arrows. Okay, so spine consistency of carbon is definitely not great compared to aluminum. Weight consistency, for our Taurus carbon arrows, we actually sort them to be very it's pretty good in terms of weight consistency, like within plus minus 0.1 gram or equivalent of like plus minus 2 grains, which is pretty good, not bad. But the consistency on aluminum arrows are very good from the factory. In terms of straightness, carbon is really nothing compared to aluminum. Aluminum are very straight right out of the factory, but carbon retain the straightness better than aluminum. So we didn't even cherry pick these. I took it out of this box. Okay, these arrows came out of this box, and based on this label here, what happened was there was initially 2 dozen in there. I sold 1.5 dozen. One of the customer wanted only half a dozen, so that's what's left from half a dozen. I didn't cherry pick this. I just took it straight out of the box. I did smoothen the feather so that it doesn't damage my arrow rest, and also added this tape again for the same purpose. I do not want it to snag against my arrow rest. These actually, because it's my existing arrows, I already smoothed them out completely so that it doesn't damage my arrow rest. Okay, so this small modification here took me a couple of minutes just to smooth it out a little bit, doesn't snag on my arrow rest. Okay, so over here we're just gonna show you the difference in front of center. We have a substantial difference in front of center. Because carbon are lighter in the shaft but heavier at the point, these come in at 22.6% front of center according to Eastern Spine FOC calculator, whereas the aluminum arrows come in at 11.1%. So that is a substantial difference in front of center. Will it cause the arrow to nosedive? Well, we'll see. I have no idea. But according to theory and known knowledges and also my previous videos, I predict that there will be no difference in terms of trajectory of these two, at least for the shorter distances up to maybe 50-70 meters. We won't see much of a difference. Can I shoot further? Of course, but I do not think my compound bow that is set at 38 pound with that hunting kind of sight, pin sight that I got many years ago, I don't think I can easily reach that kind of distance. So I probably will limit myself to like 50 or 70, depends on what my sight can be adjusted to. There shouldn't be any substantial difference in trajectory. And just to show you the weight difference, both of these arrows are as close as being identical as possible, within a plus minus of maybe 1 or 2 grains only. Very, very tight tolerance on both sets. Okay, both sets are almost identical, so that the arrow speed coming out of the bow is going to be as fair as possible. This is like 415 plus minus within 1 grain. Okay, and we're going to do the same test here. Right, as you can see, this is as fair as we can go. I believe you won't complain about that 1 or 2 grain difference, right? So in terms of weight, they will be as close as possible. In terms of arrow speed, they will be as close as possible when they are launched right after the bow. Once it's on its way to the target, we may have some difference, because this shorter arrow, and being aluminum is very smooth, we suspect that we're going to have less drag here, but it is helical fletch, so it may increase the drag a little bit. This is a 4-inch but 3 piece of fletch, so 4x3 is 12-inch. The shaft on the Taurus Carbon is designed such that it is matte, so it won't be as smooth as this, but the reason is because it doesn't it is going to be easier to pull out of the target. It doesn't stick to the target. The fletch, you might say, is not fair, but well, this is actually 4 fletch. All right, 4 fletch, 3-inch, so 3x4, again we get 12-inch, so they are actually both 12-inch of feathers. So I would say it's quite fair. The shaft is a lot longer, so we have more skin drag, but they are offset. Okay, not a lot, a little bit of offset compared to the helical. So in terms of drag, they're probably very close, not substantial difference. So there won't be too much difference in trajectory. That is my prediction, but we'll see if that is true or not. One thing though, there is a slight advantage to these arrows because they are actually a little bit fatter. As you can see, this just a little bit thicker than that one. So when I put it on my arrow rest, since the arrow rest is not going to change, I'm not going to change arrow rest for each of these arrows. So this is going to start off with a slight higher angle compared to this one. So it may cause this to hit a little bit higher because of that difference in the arrow rest. But we'll see. I actually think that they may actually end up being exactly the same, but we will see. So these are the result for 18-meter distance. As you can see, in terms of height, the trajectory, we can say that they are the same. They are dropping no faster, no slower than the other. So really, in fact, this is actually higher than this. This one we considered no difference. There's no difference in terms of height, but in terms of left and right, there is a difference because my bow, my compound, is sighted in for the aluminum arrows, so the carbon arrows are not tuned for the bow. I was actually expecting this to shoot weak because they are longer and the points are a lot heavier, so they're supposed to behave weak, but hitting towards here is an indication of being stiff. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, it is. I was expecting to hit towards my right side, but it's hitting left. A bit weird here, but it is what it is. For our traditional archery, we don't really care too much about the tuning exactly, because I know some of the compound archers, they say, oh, you have to tune this to be bullet hole for comparison. But you know, when we shoot with traditional bow, we don't really get bullet hole all the time. We just want to see like how forgiving they are, what's the grouping relative to each other, the trajectory, Like, does the front of center affect the height? That's pretty much the things that we are concerned about. So at 18 meters, no difference when it comes to trajectory. The grouping of the white is actually better. Like, it's better here compared to this, better here compared to this, but it's actually a bit worse here compared to this. So I did say that aluminum arrows are actually not bad. In terms of spine consistency, weight consistency, straightness consistency, aluminum arrows are actually really, really good. So these being traditional arrows, doing this kind of performance at 18 meters is actually quite good, but we'll have to see at longer distance how it's gonna be. So today we are at Eco Warrior Park and I'll be shooting at this distance over here. We measured this distance at 55 meters from where I'm gonna shoot, which is there. And this is the bow I showed yesterday, my compound. So I'm just gonna show you my equipment because it's really not that good of equipment. So for those who know, this is a pretty shitty peep sight because with this three string support, one of the problem is that it tends to rotate and it does actually affect my left and right sight. But whatever, it was gonna work for our purpose. This is kind of like a kind of hunting style pin sight, not the best for target archery, and I've already adjusted to as far down as I can. You can see here, it is as far down as I can, and I'll be using this pin here. So 55 meters is as far as I can go, unless you want me to shoot in the sky, which is very dangerous. Okay, so the release is this one. Is really the kind of hunting style one. Not the best for accuracy and consistency, but I don't really care because we are traditional archers. So these are the two arrows, right? And you can do a prediction, or you can try to guess which one is gonna shoot higher or lower. Will there be a difference? So again, I'm gonna just go through some very basic stuff. They are both identical in weight. Okay, identical in weight, plus minus about 1 or 2 grains. So the speed out of the bow is gonna be the same. Okay, speed is gonna be the same. Trajectory, I mean the angle of launch, this is gonna be a little bit higher because this one here is actually fatter than the other one. So when I shoot it off this arrow rest here, this one kind of point level, but this one is gonna actually kind of slightly point down, just a tiny little bit. Okay, so this one actually is at a disadvantage a little bit. This one is at a slight advantage. Okay, you guys can guess how is the front of center going to affect the shot. So this one here, in terms of the point drag, I would say it's very, very close, very similar. The point really don't make as much difference here because both are very, very streamlined. The shaft here is smoother and shorter, so there's less shaft drag. This one here is longer and matte, so there's more shaft drag. However, there's helical fletch here, which is going to increase the drag, whereas this one is a offset, so there's less drag. So overall, for a 55 meter distance, I think there is kind of plus minus give and take. So the drag on these two aren't as much. They are going to be quite similar to each other. Feather 3x4, 4x3, both are 12 inches. However, I do think that this may hit higher, and the reason is because this is actually a low profile feather, whereas this is kind of a standard kind of feather. So once it has stabilized, this actually has less drag on the feather compared to this. So my prediction is that even though at shorter distance this may be at a slight disadvantage, but at longer distance the feather is going to make up for a difference, and this may actually hit a little bit lower, a fraction lower than this. That's my prediction. I haven't actually taken much shot. I did shoot this one so that I can kind of sight in my pin slightly for that distance there, but we are not sure yet for this one. Alright, so now I'm gonna take shots, and then I'll take photos of it. I'm gonna take photos of every round, and we're gonna see if they are gonna hit the same height. Left and right wise, like I showed yesterday in my test, left and right wise, there will be a difference due to the spine difference. This one hits to my left. Okay, this one hits to the left. This one hits to the right, which we are not gonna care. Okay, for our purpose, we're not gonna care. We only care about how they group relative to each other. Like all the arrows of this type is gonna group together, and all the arrows of this one is gonna group together, and we're gonna compare the two groups. All right. Okay, so you can see this is my first round shooting them together. I'm definitely not a very good shot. I'm getting tired just holding the bow. The bow is fairly heavy. So over here you can see that the aluminium ones are the orange ones. They tend to group low. There's one that hit high, but most of them are low. Whereas you see the white ones here, the high front of center at 22.6, they are hitting higher. So I'm gonna go for my second round. Alright, second group. This is as you can see, of course I'm not that good of a compound archer, but you can see my aluminum arrows are grouping very nice here. The high front of center are higher. They are hitting higher, both of them, same weight, same speed. I believe this is an error. I'm not sure what happened, but yeah, have a look here. Now I'm gonna do my third group. Alright, so for this third set, I actually did make a sideways adjustment because I noticed that all my arrows are actually left. So I made a sideways adjustment. I didn't adjust the height, only sideways. So again, we see very consistently, although I'm not as consistent, you see my group is not that great, but what you can compare, the orange group are all here, lower than the white groups. And grouping wise, you can see that these are pretty much as good as the aluminum arrows, because this is kind of like you know, as a base control. The arrows themselves are very good, Eastern arrows, but you know, this is my grouping. So relative to this grouping, it's about the same. So they are almost equally as good as the aluminum arrows. So I managed to do only 3 sets, but let's do some conclusion here. So this is actually a fairly good bow, even though it's not a target bow, it's more of like a hunting bow. But I can tell you for sure that for those who know, this is a good brand and this is a good bow. Right, this is definitely a good bow. The arrows, this one here, the Eastern aluminum arrows, these are also excellent arrows. Combined with this helical fletch, which you know, when it spins, it actually really helps with consistency. So a good bow, good arrows, aluminum are very consistent. With helical fletch, they are very good setup. And even though I myself is not as good of an archer, but what we could see is that these carbon arrows, these Taurus carbon arrows, are performing on almost equal level. Right? They are, I may not be as good, but the group on these are pretty much the same as the group on these. So they are equally as consistent, okay? Meaning that this is pretty good. These are actually pretty good matching up with these. Now, the first set that I shot, I actually shot the carbon first and then followed by this. In the second set, I shot these first, followed by these. And in the third set, I shot them alternating. So one this, the second this, the third this, the fourth this, and so on, keep repeating. So in all 3 sets, we can see that the grouping of these two, the grouping themselves are actually the same. Okay, it's quite the same, the grouping on these and these, but these are consistently shooting higher than that. Okay, they are both the same weight, shooting at both the same speed, but these are consistently hitting higher than that. Meaning that, as I said before, front of center has absolutely zero effect on the trajectory of an arrow. So if there is this at 22.6% FOC is quite substantially higher than 11.1% FOC. So this is supposed to nosedive, but it actually end up being these hitting consistently higher than these, meaning this actually should flatter than that. All right, so meaning that I have busted the myth that front of center causes arrows to nosedive. Not only do they not nosedive, they actually shoot flatter and higher. So since I said that front of center has zero effect on the trajectory, so why is it shooting higher? It is supposed to shoot the same. And the reason is very simple. It's because of this fletch here. So I know a lot of people would say that feathers, the design of the feather doesn't matter, right? They will say that design of the feather don't matter. It's just about how much feather you have, really. So here we have 4x3, 3x4. Yeah, they have both 12-inch of feather, but as you could see, this setup here, these carbon arrows have less drag, substantially less drag than these feathers, resulting in this hitting much higher than these. All right, even though at 55 meters only, this is proving to hit a lot higher than this. So at even longer distance, this is going to hit even higher than that. And why is that? Because even though both of them have 12-inch of feather, but at release, when the arrow, let's say, is not as straight, it goes fishtailing or porpoising, whatever. We have 12-inch of feather catching the air, so both of these arrows stabilize equally as fast. Okay, both have 12-inch feather, so when they are launched, they kick sideways or whatever. They have 12-inch of feather to catch the air, and they stabilize equally as fast, both of these. However, once the arrow has stabilized, these arrows, the feathers are sticking out a lot. They're high profile, they're sticking out a lot, resulting in a lot of drag. Whereas these feathers, the other one, they stick out a lot less. Okay, they stick out a lot less, so they have much less drag. Compare that, right? Very obviously, once the arrow has fully stabilized, it is pointing straight into the wind. These guys have substantially less drag. So that's why they maintain their speed a lot better and they're hitting higher. So are feathers all the same? No. These design, they are superior. They stabilize the arrow equally as fast, but once it has stabilized, it has less drag as it flies downrange. Which is why if you look at traditional arrows, right, those feather fletch ones, they tend to have longer but lower profile feather. This is why.